authorize the mayor to execute amendment number 2 to this TDOT construction project.
Are you making this presentation, or Mr. Gwaltney?
Mr. Gwaltney will. Yeah, Tim will make the last 3, Mayor, the acquisitions and the TDOT.
We're right on the hour, so let's have any questions on that item for the traditional meeting. Executive session is now adjourned. Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, November 12th version of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for this evening. We welcome all those in attendance. We almost have a full house tonight. Just a few highlights about our meeting this evening. We've got a pretty lengthy agenda. Most of it is in the consent agenda. This evening we've got 5 items of special recognition. We've also got a grant for the Germantown Community Theater and some right-of-way acquisitions and a major road project as well. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Assistant City Administrator Jason Heisman. Our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Alderman Forrest Owens. Please rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come together this evening with a spirit of gratitude to the thousands of men, women, and their families who have made so many sacrifices in service to our country. As we enter this season of Thanksgiving, we thank you for the freedom and the safety their service and your sovereignty and grace has provided us. We are truly grateful for the gift that is Germantown, and we are thankful that so many of us here are able to call this exceptional place home. May you bless our discussion tonight and give wisdom and discernment to those who are making decisions on behalf of our community. Father, we pray that in all we do this evening and going forward, that it would be done in such a way that not only honors, but also glorifies you. For it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Brings us to item number 4 on the agenda, setting the agenda. During executive session, the board, which meets at 5:30 in executive session, requested that 3 items be moved from the consent agenda to the traditional agenda. Those items are item O, P, and Q. So now those will be on the traditional agenda as item 15, 16, and 17. Are there any other adjustments or modifications to the agenda? Is there a motion to set the agenda as modified?
So moved.
So motion?
Second.
So motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Thank you. The agenda has been set for this evening. Brings us to item number 5 on the agenda, approval of the minutes from the October 22nd meeting. During executive session, there are no modifications or changes. Are there any at this particular time? Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved from October 22nd. Takes us to item 6 on the agenda, several items of special recognition. First this evening, we'll be recognizing our SWAT team that has won back-to-back championships. Chief Hall will be making that presentation this evening. Chief?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And Mayor and Board, it is a truly privilege and honor for me to recognize your SWAT team tonight at this board meeting. At this point in time, I'd like the ones that are, God, they're ahead of the game. Line up down there. Come on in here. All right, make room. Here we go. Before I give you the background, I'd like to introduce the members that are here. Aaron Cox, Patrolman Ben Stonecipher, Kevin Graves, Richard Cordo, Lieutenant Davis Herndon, Lieutenant Ben Sharp, and Captain Nick Godwin. And Captain Nick Godwin also heads up our team. The members aren't here. I'd also like to recognize one very important member is our Deputy Fire Chief, Jeff Beeman, who's also a reserve police officer and operates as the tactical unit paramedic. Other officers, Lieutenant Clint Parker actually is on mission in Honduras. And believe it or not, several members are training tonight. That would be Tyler Catterton, Johnny Vo, Kirby Harris, and Samuel Henderson. Did I forget anybody? Johnny Vo. A little bit of background. Our Germantown Police Department has maintained a tactical response team. I wish next time I need to blow this up. If I wear my spectacles, I'll lose my train of thought. SWAT standing for Special Weapons and Tactics. They're there to help in situations that may be beyond a regular officer's capabilities. Those can be hostage situations, a barricaded suspect, certainly serving dangerous warrants, and also directed patrols or any mission that needs more skill and teamwork. I will give you the reason they're here tonight is because on October 17th this year, our team, members of the team, competed in the 2018 Mississippi Tactical Officers Association SWAT competition. If you don't remember, last year they placed first and actually beat out several dedicated teams. I won't be hurtful tonight. We're just going to talk about the winning team here. They did, this year, come in with a tie for first place. There was a sudden death match in which they did prevail, and our team took first place again at this championship. I want to put that most importantly, and I want to read this because I think it would be lost if you didn't realize this, that the competition is a test of real-world skills necessary in their line of work. Finishing at the top of the competition for a second year is a true testament to the exceptional skill level and work ethic. Our SWAT team continues to give citizens of Germantown their best each and every day. And I also want to add that this group of SWAT members, they do this voluntarily as far as stepping up above and beyond regular patrol duties or lieutenant supervisory duties. And they maintain their proficiency and their physical performance many times on their off duty because it would be hard to maintain their skill level, you know, on a daily basis like that. I would like their commander to say a few words.
Thank y'all, and I'll try to be brief. I want to thank Chief Hall, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for this recognition. I know I speak for the entire team when I say this means a lot to us. These competitions are an excellent way to demonstrate the time and effort our team puts into its training. And having been a part of this team and that training, their repeated success does not come as a surprise to me. While I'm proud of the dedication that went into the team's competition performance, I'm even more proud of the work the team puts in, both on duty and on their personal time, to stay operationally ready. This is the training that cannot be shared or praised all the time, yet is where they place the majority of their effort and sacrifice. 3 of our team members cannot be here tonight because they're doing this type of training as we speak, and one of them is instructing with other team leaders from area agencies. It's important to our team that we not become complacent and remember the people that we serve. They trust in our abilities if the worst were to happen, and they're worthy of our dedication and sacrifice. I'm proud to be a member of this team with these men, and we're proud to serve this city.
Chief, Captain Godwin, we certainly do appreciate your dedication to service and your bringing home a championship. And I noticed that you are all now clean shaven. During competition, a lot of facial hair. There's a mustache somewhere that disappeared. I noticed that as well. Congratulations, guys. We appreciate it very, very much. Brings us to items B, C, and D on special recognition, all involved education. The October Youth Excellence Award, the November Youth Excellence Award, and the November Teacher of the Month. Vice Mayor Gibson will handle all those presentations. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could ask Education Commission Member Manjeet Kaur to come forward, and if there are any other Commission members in the audience, if you could come forward, Manjeet. Also, Mr. Samuel Killebrew, if you could come forward also. And Sam, as you get in position, I'll go ahead and start reading. Perfect. The October 2018 Youth Excellence Award is presented to Samuel Killebrew, a senior at Houston High School. Sam's academic performance was described to commission members as impressive, extraordinary, and stellar. Sam is a well-rounded student, active in numerous extracurricular activities, while at the same time managing an impressive course load of honors and AP level courses, and simultaneously lettering in baseball and bowling for the past 3 years. Well done. That's not easy to do. He has a 3.9 unweighted GPA. Sam is a member of the National Honor Society, DECA, Mu Alpha Theta Mathematics Honor Society, National Latin Honor Society, and the 30-plus ACT Club at Houston High, an elite group of students who scored 30 or more on the ACT. The national average is 21. He is currently pursuing an appointment to a military service academy. Not only is Sam a scholar athlete, he is also committed to service in his community, both the Houston Middle and High School community and the greater Germantown community. As his Honors Academy capstone project, Sam developed a STEM curriculum for Houston Middle School students and then recruited, organized, and trained Houston High School students to staff the STEM camp. That would be camp, STEM camp. Through this project and many others, Sam has developed the leadership skills to be successful academically, athletically, and socially. As one of his teachers related to the commission, his maturity and willingness to complete a task to the best of his ability set the standard for his peers. It is his character and dedication to excellence that sets him apart. And I see a bunch of beaming family members, so you already know this. We are so thankful to be able to represent Sam Killebrew, to see him represent the best of Germantown. He's dedicated to his academic studies, extracurricular activities, and community service, and in recognition of his commitment to academic excellence, character, and service, the Germantown Education Commission is proud to present Sam Killebrew with the October 2018 Germantown Youth Excellence Award. Thank you. And Sam, if I only get tongue-tied a few times, it's because of so many wonderful accomplishments that you have had in your just beginning career at Houston. If I could ask Mr. Garrett McFadden to come forward. The November 2018 Youth Excellence Award is presented to Garrett McFadden, a senior at Christian Brothers High School. Garrett was described to commission members as outstanding, a role model, and extraordinary. Garrett is a hard-working student with strong moral standards that help him put others' needs before his own. Garrett uses his time away from school to serve his community through service projects at local homeless shelters and soup kitchens. Garrett is active in his church's youth activities as well. Not only is Garrett active in service away from school, but he is also a decorated scholar, carrying a heavy course load through the De La Salle Honors Program at CBHS, including more than 10 AP level classes. He has a cumulative 3.9 GPA. He has been named to the CBHS honor roll for each semester of his high school career. This year, he was chosen as a St. Jude Science Scholar, an AP Scholar with honors, and a National Merit Commended Scholar. Additionally, he is a member of the CBHS varsity tennis team, the student ministry team. Oh, let me take a breath. Very impressive, Garrett. Captain of CBHS Knowledge Bowl team, and is active in Model UN and Youth in Government. A graduate of Tennessee's Boys State last summer, he was selected to attend the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference and has completed in excess of 150 hours of volunteer service to that organization. Well done. Clearly, he is a positive role model at his school, his neighborhood, his church, and his greater community. He is at his best when he is helping others. Garrett represents the best of Germantown. He is dedicated to his academic studies, extracurricular activities, and community service. In recognition of his commitment to academic excellence, character, and service, the Germantown Education Commission is proud to present Garrett McFadden with the November 2018 Germantown Youth Excellence Award. I'm turning the page slowly. Ms. Lori Tingle, please come forward. I see many of your colleagues here as well as some of your students, and this is truly an honor. It is an honor for the Germantown Education Commission to present the November 2018 Teacher of the Month Award to Ms. Lori Tingle. Ms. Tingle teaches at Houston High School, where she leads the Germantown Municipal Schools Alternative Education Program. As the former senior guidance counselor at Houston High, many struggling students would never have graduated without Ms. Tingle's unique brand of understanding and encouragement. She is widely known as a determined and talented educator focused on supporting students. Ms. Tingle is a champion of students who, for the most part, fly under the academic or athletic radar. Simply put, she has a tremendous heart for students and an unwavering commitment to helping students become their best selves. This award is sponsored by Principal Toyota, and Ms. Tingle, please accept our appreciation for your commitment to Germantown students and to excellence every day.
Sam, Garrett, Ms. Tingle, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen join in this celebration and congratulate you as well. Job well done, all three of you. That brings us to item E on the agenda this evening, proclamation for World War I Centennial. I'm going to ask that our Germantown historian, Andy Pouncey, come forward and make that presentation this evening and read a proclamation into the record.
Whereas the United States entered the First World War on April 6, 1917, the 46 Germantown boys began their service to our country at home and abroad.
Okay, thank you. And whereas derogatory remarks by fellow soldiers regarding our town's name, reflecting anti-German sentiments, were intense and were reflected in the details of everyday life, and whereas a group of patriotic citizens collected the signatures of 326 residents asking that the town's name be changed, and whereas the Post Office Department approved the name change from Germantown to Neshoba, and both the Post Office Department and Southern Railway adopted this name on May 15, 1917, and whereas a commercial appeal article proclaimed that Germantown was now just a memory and that the community had become Neshoba, the same name as Francis Wright's early plantation and the Indian name for wolf. Postal records show that the name was spelled Neshoba with an E rather than Neshoba with an A. And whereas Neshoba once again became Germantown after the war on April 4, 1922. And whereas the following soldiers represented Germantown bravely during this time of conflict: Yancey Aiken, John Bates, Jesse Bradley, Whitman Burks, John Carson, Wallace Carter, William Chalmers, Eddie Cornelius, Roland L. Cornelius, Erasmus G. Cross, Henry Hack, Ben Hall, James A. Hall, Martin P. Harrison, Leland Hoffman, Robert Hurd, Roper Jenkins, James B. Lowe, Jesse W. Lowry, Hezekiah Macklin, Thomas J. Marshall, John Lipsey Miller, Henry Moore, Malcolm L. Moore, Bernie Mulliken, Clarence L. Mulliken, Sumter W. Mulliken, Joseph Parker, Ivan B. Price, Ernest D. Roberts, Quentin Roberts, Lon Rogers, Willie J. Rogers, Robert L. Scroggs, Rowan Bridges Scroggs, Edward C. Stout, Dewey Tuggle, Hulsey B. Tuggle, William S. Turner, Fraser Walker, Nicholas G. Watkins, Sam Watson, Robert N. Wells, Henry L. Williams, John H. Williams, and James Wilson. And now, therefore, be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the City of Germantown that we acknowledge the service and sacrifice of these citizens whose efforts helped lead to the cessation of hostilities on the Western Front of War I on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, 100 years ago.
Thank you, Historian Pouncey. Very befitting on this Veterans Day that we salute this 100-year anniversary and look at our heritage. And on a side note, you have set the bar high. You are our first city historian. I know you take your work very seriously and do significant research and represent the city well, the county and state level. So we appreciate it, Andy. Thank you very much. That concludes all of our special presentations this evening and special recognition. We move to item 7 on the agenda this evening, which are Alderman liaison reports. The aldermen serve as liaisons to, and I tell you what, before we move into that, everyone who was in attendance for special recognition, this will be a good time. We'll take a short little break. The meeting will continue, but you can go home and get out of the cold and enjoy some dinner. And what scout troop are you from tonight, scouts? 274. What church do you represent, or what center? Holy Rosary. So we welcome Troop 274 this evening from Holy Rosary that's in attendance this evening. And again, we congratulate all those special recognition recipients this evening. That brings us to item 7, Alderman Liaison Reports. We begin with Alderman Position 1, Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you. The Economic Development Commission met last week. We had several items of discussion. The staff covered several meetings that they have attended, including the Tennessee Governor's Conference for Economic Development in Nashville. New products and construction updates were discussed with the members, including the Thornwood Open House. We are seeing continuing growth in our key commercial areas. Mr. Ross touched on a few openings in Saddle Creek and village shops out east. Next, the Chamber was introduced Christy Ransom as a new to the commission as their vice president. They also talked about their work for the annual magazine resource guide that will be distributed beginning of February 2019. They also brought up their celebration of excellence, which will be on February the 7th, 2019, so please save that date. The event highlights of the small business of the year, the large business of the year, and the nonprofit of the year, and the ambassador of the year. Reed Duberger with EDGE gave an update on the work, including the coordination of the new county mayor, Lee Harris, and highlighted some of the Shelby County Chamber Alliance, highlighted the chamber video. You can go pick online at www.shelbychamberalliance.org to see that video. It was incredibly interesting. Finally, we had some visitors from the Epicenter. The group called Truckish, and it's a very interesting concept. These people do the actual work that an individual company would do in getting licensing in various states, what have you. It's pretty tedious work for a business that is into trucking that has trucks. And these people, with this startup initiative, will be a great asset to people in that industry, or any industry for that matter. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Alderman. Vice Mayor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Beautification Commission is working with local art students who are making hand-painted ornaments for the city holiday tree inside of City Hall. The tree will be decorated in time for the holiday tree lighting ceremony scheduled for Friday, November 23rd at Municipal Park, beginning at 5 p.m. The Board of Zoning Appeals will be meeting tomorrow in these chambers at 5:30 in administrative conference and 6 o'clock for the regular meeting. The Neighborhood Preservation Commission held their neighborhood summit on the 23rd of October, where several key awards were made. The theme this year was Will You Be Our Neighbor? And again, the scope of the event was to help residents connect in big and small ways, working towards being a good neighbor. We actually have our Neighbor of the Year, Ms. Dory Sims, in attendance. The Neighborhood Leader of the Year was awarded to Mr. Josh Cathy. Neighborhood Association of the Year, Kimbrough Woods, where they host over 14 major social events throughout the year, as well as the luminaries around the holidays, which is always special for the entire community. And if I could, Mayor, while it's not part of my liaison, I would like to make note of the Flower House at Oaklawn Garden. The Suburban Garden Club, along with Chairman Linda Smith, did an unbelievable job. I hope everyone was able to go over there. It's where floral designers from all across the country came in and donated their time and their talents to really doing something very beautiful. It was a fundraiser event for Oaklawn Gardens for that restoration. And so that's my report, sir.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Massey.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Owens.
Thank you, Mayor. Parks Commission met this on October 25th and approved several items, amongst other things, the sports provider agreements that we are approving this evening, including the Germantown Baseball League, Germantown Legends, Houston Lacrosse, and the Germantown Rugby Club. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Yonda.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no report.
Thank you, Alderman. And from the Mayor's office, just a quick few items. Want to issue congratulations to Eric Grizzard, who will be promoted to EMS Chief in late December to replace the retiring Mark Carter, who started our ambulance service. Also, congratulations to Richard Cook, who will be promoted to First Lieutenant as well. So, Chief, if you can pass on that from the board to those gentlemen. Also, I'd like to thank the Kiwanis Club of Germantown. They hosted our annual Employee Appreciation Pancake Breakfast, and one of our city planners, Sarah Gorleski, was honored as the Employee of the Year by the Kiwanis Club. So we want to also congratulate her and thank the Kiwanians as well. And then also, just please note that we have 24 or so boards and commissions in the city of Germantown, and November 30th is the deadline for application of these boards and commissions. We have 3 new boards and commissions this year: Public Art, Pedestrian and Biking and Pedestrian, and Technology. And so for anyone who would have interest, you can apply online, and that can be found at our website at germantown-tn.gov. That concludes our Alderman reports for this evening. Takes us to item 8 on the agenda, citizens to be heard. We have no citizens to be heard forms filled out this evening, so we'll move to the consent agenda and go through each one of those items quickly for the record. We met in executive session. The consent agenda and the full agenda was printed to the public ahead of this meeting. And on the consent agenda this evening, the following items were reviewed beforehand and again in executive session. Consent item A, contract, ECD building boiler replacement. Item B, contract for the Great Hall carpet replacement. Item C, contract for the police shooting range HVAC replacement. Item D, donations for the Germantown Community Library. Item E, grant for the Houston High School project graduation. Item F, purchase for the annual computer upgrades. Item G, purchase for paging system, cabling, and installation at Germantown Athletic Club. Item H, purchase police department mobile data terminals. Item I, purchase pour-in-place playground at Dogwood and Riverdale Parks. Item J, purchase security cameras at the Germantown Athletic Club. Item K, purchase SWAT body armor. Item L, purchase trailer attenuator. Is that correct? Attenuator, thank you. I've learned a new word today. Item M, reimbursement payment number 3, GMSD school security improvements. Item N, sports provider agreements, Germantown Baseball League, Germantown Legends, Houston Lacrosse, and Germantown Rugby Club. As mentioned earlier in the meeting, item O, P, and Q were asked to be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the traditional agenda. Are there any additions or any questions on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented? It's a motion.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Consent agenda has been approved. That brings us to our regular agenda this evening. Item 10, contract lobbying services. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Over the past 12 years, the city has engaged the services of the law firm of Ferris, Babango, and Brannon to serve as the city's lobbyist, representing and serving as an advocate for the city of Germantown in legislative matters that could impact our community. We first began work with the firm a number of years ago over the hotly contested statewide cable franchise issue. Since that time, the firm has worked very closely with city staff and the city administrator in particular in drafting and advancing or actively fighting against legislation that is not in the best interest of the city of Germantown. The role of our lobbyists over the past 12 years has been one of advocacy by going on record with the General Assembly and exercising our right to be heard to help outline and frame legislation in such a way that the public and the General Assembly clearly know the position of the city of Germantown on various legislative issues, whether for or against the city. Under this contract, the contract amount has not changed in the past 4 years. It's been $42,000 since that period of time. The city administrator will take the lead role in managing this contract, and Mr. John Ferris of the firm will represent the city's interest in Nashville. On a regular basis, myself and Mayor Palazzolo will attend sessions in Nashville, and if necessary, we will have department heads present if there's a matter of particular interest. For example, if it's an issue involving, say, guns in parks or any other change in that legislation, Chief Hall and his association will work extremely hard and will be present with us. If it's a public works or an infrastructure issue, Mr. Mills can lend his expertise. If it's a planning and zoning issue, we'll also invite Mr. Ross and others to attend those sessions. Or technology, I know Tony Fisher's been involved in the small cell legislation and what's happening with the 5G upgrade. So the lobbying services contract is extremely helpful for the city because it provides that voice when we're not there in Nashville, because there's an old saying oftentimes when the General Assembly is in session, cities are at risk. So we need to make sure that we have the pulse of what's taking place and can react to the good and the bad legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor to execute a lobbying services agreement with Ferris, Babango, Brannon, PLC, attorneys at law, for lobbying services on behalf of the city of Germantown beginning November 1st, 2018 and ending October 31st, 2019 in the amount of $42,000?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions or discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
Measure passes. We move to item 11 on the agenda, Grant Germantown Community Theater. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Excuse me. It's probably been 10 or 12 years since the city of Germantown has had a relationship with the Germantown Community Theater. Well, we've always had a strong relationship with them because they lease the building in which the city owns and the wonderful things at GCT take place. However, a number of years ago, the Germantown Community Theater took over the children's theater programming activities that were in Parks Recreation, where we hired staff to do that. They stepped in and agreed once Morgan Woods Theater was closed, which is now our 10-gen library, and agreed to produce that program. It's called Fun in Theater. And the city, under a contract with them, has provided $45,000 a year for them to run that program. Included in your agenda sheet is an overview and a review of the programming activities that go into the Fun in Theater program. It's also more clearly identified on page 2 of the contract where that $45,000 will go. During our discussions this year with the Financial Advisory Commission, the Germantown Community Theater representatives approached the city administration and also the the Finance Committee, as we were doing our, engaged in our budget deliberations, and asked for an increase in funding this year to help support ongoing operational needs. It takes a lot of dollars to run and operate the theater, and the GCT board at that time made their case before the Financial Advisory Committee to increase the grant amount this year from the $45,000 to operate the Fun and Theater program to include additional $55,000 for overall operational support. I can tell you it's a lean staff that operates at GCT. The money, based on a conversation with the Finance Committee administration, will be well spent. One of the things that is a requirement of the theater agreement and our relationship with with GCT is that they prepare financial reports and a budget, and that they submit an audit to the city at the end of the year, at the end of the fiscal year, based on our review of the information and what's required in the contract. On an ongoing basis, they are in compliance with the agreement as it existed in fiscal year 18, and a copy of their audit report is available in the Finance Department. Mayor, I know there are members of the Board of Directors with GCT present, and I believe they or their Director Eric would like to address the board regarding this funding request.
Yes, please. If the board and volunteers would like to come forward, maybe sit in the first row and be also available for questions here in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and get a motion on the table. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor to execute an agreement for the FY19 budget year between the City of Germantown and the Germantown Community Theater, and to authorize the budgeted payment of $100,000?
Move to approve.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussions or questions for GCT? Alderman Massey?
Would they like to give their presentation first, and then us ask questions?
Did you want to make a presentation this evening, or to field questions? Your prerogative. The stage is yours, so to speak.
Yes, it should be interesting. This is what we do with the theater, I guess, is do a presentation. First off, I want to say thank you to all of you for everything that you do. I see people up that are leading Germantown that not only support through the government, but support personally. And your personal contributions mean a lot to the theater, and it means a lot to us to see you come in our doors and enjoy the product that we put out. I believe that we have a product that is unique to our city. I can talk to you about theater all day long, because I'm there all day long. But it's a unique opportunity. We're the only place in Germantown where you can see locally produced theater. We don't offer the same product as GPAC. GPAC does a wonderful, lovely job with the programs that they perform, and we have a wonderful working relationship with them. But we're the only place that you can go if you want to see live theater produced by your fellow citizens. We're also the only place that you can go in Germantown if you want to send your children to train about theater. And you might say, well, what's the importance of theater education? Well, not every kid is a great athlete, and not every kid is a genius in the classroom, but one thing that we can do is build self-confidence. And theater is all about self-confidence, and maybe you don't have self-confidence to learn about how to be out in front of people on the stage, but maybe you can learn about how to support and be the glue that holds everything together behind the scenes. We provide a lot of opportunities not only to the youth, but we've also started adding some additional educational programs to our older adult citizens. We had an adult dance class, and we've just recently started adding some adult acting classes. So if any of you would like to learn about getting on the stage, then we have those available for you as well. So we would love to see any of you with that interest. And you might say, well, what's the importance of that? How many jobs involve public speaking? Where can you go as an adult to get training on public speaking? Well, we have something now that we can offer the citizens of Germantown that we feel is very unique. And as we've tried to add all these additional programmings, we're not adding to staff. We're keeping our overhead low, and we are running a lean, tight ship right now. So.
Thank you. Can you just state your name and title for the record? That's fine.
Yes, my name is Brian Everson. I'm the Executive Director at Germantown Community Theater.
Thank you, Brian. Questions for staff or for GCT? Alderman Owens.
Yeah, could you just briefly, and this is your opportunity to have a commercial, I suppose, for GCT, but talk a little bit about the programs that you guys provide in our scope of services. I mean, you might include.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have already just recently done partnering with the Parks Department, the Fairy Tale Trail. We had record attendance as far as participants this year. Usually we have about 20 to 25 25, maybe 30 children, anywhere from ages 6 to 18 that participate. And this year we had 51 children, which gave some unique challenges, but it had a great effect as far as getting those people involved and having new faces in the theater every day. When the program itself went on, which is at the new the Farm Park, which I don't know if you all got to come to the Fall Festival at the Farm Park, but I believe we had over 400 people walk the trail this year, which is a great number. In addition to that, we provide some homeschool courses, and again, this year we have, in the fall, we have 2 classes every year in the fall, and those both had students in the 18 to 20 range as far as numbers, which is an increase. It's about a 25% increase from typical. We'll be offering also some more homeschool classes in the spring semester. We're also doing the Big Read, which is a program we do with the local schools here. In addition to that, we provide opportunities in our main season with our general programming. We've already done one show, the name goes out, Singing in the Rain. That was an all-youth cast, people 18 and under, and we're about to, if you didn't know already, at the end of this month, we'll be opening It's a Wonderful Life, and it's a student cast, and that it will not be 18 and under, but everyone in the cast is a student. So it's a great experience for Germantown residents to come and participate and get in the holiday spirit. We actually have a special event on November 30th where Carolyn Grimes, who was the original Zuzu in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, will be coming out and having a Q&A with the audience before the show. So you can ask her all your Jimmy Stewart questions. We do provide something unique, and it's something that we continue to do year after year. This is our 47th season. We're looking strong at 48, and we're already started planning for season 50. So we really love what we do, and we love the service that we provide, and we have a wonderful staff. Cheryl, our education coordinator, is here with us tonight. She is a busy woman. She just directed Fairy Tale Trail, and she's the director for It's a Wonderful Life, and she is here when she should be at rehearsal, but I asked her to be here. In case you had any specific questions about education, she would be able to handle those better than I do.
Any other questions? Alderman Owens, follow up?
Up on that, yeah, thank you for that information. I know you may have mentioned that y'all do some summer camps.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry, I neglected those, but yes, summer camps. So last year we had 6 weeks of summer camps? 5 weeks of summer camps that were sold out with a waiting list, and that's something we do year after year. We also have a senior conservatory, which is for our older high schoolish seniors, juniors in high school that want to get specifically into learning more about the craft of acting, more than our typical summer camps are more geared toward anywhere from 6 to ages 13 or 14.
So I know that we had some management issues at GCT a couple of years ago, and I appreciate you guys trying to rebuild. Is this something that you believe you guys will come to us on an annual basis for this funding, or do you see yourself weaning off of that? Or
I do believe in the thing that was brought to the Finance Committee by Hal Beckham, who's a member of our board but is in Minneapolis. He put forward a number of funding schedules, how typical theaters work, how they typically function. And one thing that you see is that a theater of our size, we have a very intimate space. I think most of you have been in there, but it's a 112-seat space. So we can only sell 112 tickets to every show that we do. What we see as far as successful community theaters in our area is that they either have one of two operating systems. Either one, they have multiple stages so that there's always a show going on, so that they have a continual revenue stream coming in. The others, which you will also see in this area, I think Collierville has the same funding system, and I think DFT is partners with the city of South Haven, is where the city actually, they're associated with, will actually be the handles the payroll, and that in the instance of Collierville, the Collierville Arts Councils will do the, as far as producing the shows, which would be royalties, paying designers, securing rights, all that sort of thing, and that's what they do. Now, we had approached Germantown originally about going to a similar model that Collierville does, while the city was not, at that point, really excited to go that route, they did think that a a bump in the operational support up to $100,000 would allow the theater to be successful as the other theaters in our area are successful.
Thank you.
Any other questions for either staff or for Germantown Community Theater?
Sure. I have a few
Alderman?
questions, maybe.
Yeah.
So just for the sake of the public, what does your budget look like? You mentioned a revenue stream. So what kind of revenue are you bringing in, and what are your expenses?
So typically our budget, which I have here, our typical budget runs about 200 and between 50 to 275,000 a year is what it typically does when we are successful. There are times, as far as last year in particular, we actually our revenue greatly increased our expenses as it needed to last year to kind of improve our financial situation. But last year, I believe our revenue numbers. I have a copy of our audit, so let me tell you exactly what they were. So last year, our total expenses was $271,967, and our total revenue and support was $326,524.
We're giving you $100,000 this year. You've asked for $100,000 this year, and we're increasing that by $55,000. It looks like $80,000 of this is going to salaries. You said that you haven't added anyone, so the question I'm going to get as an alderman is why did you need the additional $55,000? And if you have sufficient revenues to cover the expenses, do you need the $100,000 from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen? I'm not saying you do or don't. I just want you to be able to explain it to the public in your own words. So if you'll just take a few minutes to explain why you've asked for that $100,000 and why $80,000 of that is going to salaries.
Okay. The actuality was that the city in the past has given us $45,000, which we applied directly to our educational department. And the way that we looked as far as the additional $55,000 would be kind of put toward additional operational expenses. Some of that would be salaries, some of that would be royalties, some of that would be the actual production of our performances. The additional funding is, again, based off of what it means and what it takes to be a successful community theater in today's environment. Based off of the other models of successful theaters, if you want to have a theater that thrives in this community, in the space that it's in, the way to do that is to increase that support to kind of help the theater be able to produce the 7 shows that we do a year, because shows are expensive to produce. What we have done from an operational standpoint was, prior to last year, I think we got the staffing from about 6 to now we're 3 people, and we work hard and long hours to make sure that we are able to continue to put the productions on and to provide the educational programming that we do to that. So some of the $55,000 you could say would be applied to salaries, but not all of that will be. I mean, we have other funding sources besides the city. While the city is the biggest funding source that we have, we also have other grants through the Tennessee Arts Commission, through Arts Memphis, through individual donors, creative partners, ticket sales. All those are our additional funding sources that, you know, we utilize all those funding sources to pay for salaries, programming, and education. Yeah. This is Bo Adams, president of our board of directors.
Thank you, Brian. Brian is a details guy, and he's got all that down and knows that stuff, and I sure don't. But one of the things we offer, and they talk about the educational program, education doesn't mean just kids. and it doesn't mean just acting on the stage. So we think if we have more to work with, we can do more. Brian talked about the cost of putting on the shows. We're really limited on royalties that we can get shows. We can do better shows. We can do maybe bigger shows. We can do more popular shows, bring more people in. Our educational program, it's not just acting on the stage. It's stage managing. It's directing. It's running the office. It's the backstage. So you can get a full experience there. There's other things we can do for the community. You know, we held a first responders night last year for police, fire, and emergency room workers. Just the thing that you give us, we can sort of give back to the community. As Brian said, we cut our overhead from 6 staff members down to 3, and we've increased our board by several numbers, so we've got a more active board going on here with their commitments and their development. And Alderman Owens, is this going to be something we need every year? Every successful theater needs backing from the community. Very few of them exist just on their own, but to add part of the community, what you're giving to us, we feel like we're giving back in the educational experience, in the First Responders Night and other community events like that. And just the quality of our program is, as they've said, nobody else does this exact thing in Germantown, and hardly anybody does this maybe in the city of Memphis exactly, to this intimate little setting we have. So that's sort of my vision for the future is, why are you giving us the money? We want to do something great with it. That's what I would say about that. He's got the details where we need it for things. I'm looking at the future growth. Thank you.
And I think, Alderman Massey, you need talking points for your people. The funding that we've requested from the city of Germantown is going to cover just under 85% of the staff salaries. So it's a fraction of our budget in total. We market our products and services to a point where we touch about 16,000 citizens of Germantown. So as you go back to your constituency, I think you can say that you're being a good steward of the city's dollars. You're supporting a small fraction of one line item of our budget, and that is salaries. But it's about 85%. We cover the rest through fundraising, programming, our own earned revenue endeavors. And I think that you can confidently say to your constituency that this is a product that you're giving support to, because it touches approximately 16,000 people in the city of Germantown.
Yeah, I think your explanations have been put forth very well. I appreciate you taking the opportunity to explain that. Hopefully when someone asks me, I'll be able to explain it and then say, it's there in the video, you can see it for yourself, and I'll refer them to exactly what y'all said, because I don't think I can explain it any better than you did. So thank you.
And more importantly, bring a friend to a show.
It will do. Thank you.
Any other questions for either staff or for folks at the theater? It's been a motion properly seconded. Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman
Yes,
Barziza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
The motion carries and is approved. I'll just add that thank you, Bo, for mentioning the first responders. I was going to thank the theater myself, but that was a wonderful evening. We had a packed house, and it was date night for our first responders, so that was very special. Good, good. I also like to recognize the Germantown Women's Club for literally creating the theater many years ago and coming to the theater's rescue on a couple occasions. And to you, President Adams, as well, for being there at every step of the way, as they've had a renaissance as well. So, and I know you guys, I understand, Dr. Adams. I know you guys had some practice tonight, so if you want to leave at this time, you wouldn't be rude whatsoever. That takes us to item 12 on the agenda, right-of-way acquisition, Track 10, Forest Hill Irene Road improvements. Mr. Gwaltney.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this agenda item is to request BMA approval of a contract and purchase with Mrs. Suzanne and Mr. Redwan Heichel in an amount not to exceed $67,000 for the purchase of real estate and easements related to improvements to Forest Hill Irene Road and disbursement of the purchase price to the seller and of other incidental sums required of the city under the purchase agreement or otherwise effectuate the purposes of the purchase agreement. And effectuate is not an engineering term, by the way. So I'm going to be referring a lot to attachment 1, which is the right-of-way map in your agenda packet. I'm just curious, is it a color copy? Okay, thanks. The Forest Hill Irene Improvements Project from Winchester to Poplar Pike consists of widening the existing 2-lane rural cross-section roadway to a 5-lane urban cross-section that includes 2 lanes in each direction, a center turn lane / raised median, landscape median, bike lanes, curb gutter, and sidewalk on both sides. From a timing standpoint, the most critical portion of the roadway improvements project is a segment from Forest Hill Downs to Poplar Pike. That is the segment that includes the new school site, and on that map, that's tracks number 22 and 23. This segment of the project contains the new school site, and it is projected to be open for business in August of 2019. With that schedule in mind, the roadway construction contract was written such that that segment from Forest Downs to Poplar Pike must be completed by August of 2019. The contractor has 18 months to complete the entire project. Constructing the project requires purchasing right-of-way and/or easements from 27 property owners along that segment of the roadway, along the entire length from Winchester to Poplar Pike. In the critical segment from Forest Downs to Poplar Pike, there are a total of 11 affected property owners. When the roadway construction contract was presented to the board in August, just a couple of months ago, the city had reached purchase agreements with 9 of those 11 property owners. We had reached right of entry agreements with the 2 property owners indicated in blue. That's tracks number 15 and 31. The right of entry agreements allowed the construction to begin on these properties while negotiations continued with the property owners. To date, there's no change in the status of that. We have still not come to an agreement on those 2 properties. But again, the construction has started. In the southern portion, from Forest Downs to Winchester, there's a total of 16 affected properties. At the time the construction contract was presented to the BMA, we had come to a purchase agreement with 12 of those 16 property owners. Staff recommended approval of the construction contract to allow the project to begin in order to meet the tight timeline while allowing negotiations to continue with those 4 remaining property owners. Those 4 remaining tracks were tracks number 10, 10A, 11, and 12. Negotiations continued, and staff was able to negotiate settlements on tracks 10A and 11. Those purchase agreements were presented to the BMA for approval at the October 8th and October 22nd BMA meetings. Staff was unable to negotiate settlements on tracks number 10 and 12. Those are the ones shown in yellow there. Both of those tracks were turned over to the city attorney's office to negotiate a settlement. Track number 10, which is the subject of this agenda item, was appraised at $22,000, which was the original offer to the owners. The Heichels rejected this offer and countered at an amount of $141,665. After a couple of more attempts to settle, again, staff was unable to come to an agreement. It was handed over to the city attorney's office. They, in turn, negotiated a settlement amount of $67,000, which staff respectfully recommends for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gwaltney. Is there a motion to approve the acquisition of real estate and/or easements for Mrs. Suzanne and Dr. Radwan Heichel for the total lump sum of $67,000 for Track 10 in accordance with the terms of the purchase agreement and authorize the disbursement of the purchase price to the seller and of other sums required of the city under the purchase agreement or otherwise to effectuate the purpose of the purchase agreement? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second. Any questions for staff? Alderman Massey.
Mr. Gwaltney, it sounds like that this agreement was mutual and the Heichels are happy with this then at this point. I haven't received any calls from anyone, frankly, saying that these two items are opposed by either of these owners. So I tend to support this if there is no lingering opposition from the owners, and that's what it looks like we have here tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? It's been motioned and seconded. Please call the roll.
Alderman Bardziza,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda.
Yes. Motion carries and is approved.
Thank you.
Brings us to item 13 on the agenda, right
Mayor-
away.
Mayor, I apologize. May I interrupt? I'm going to need to recuse myself on this next item.
Okay. Let the record show and state that Vice Mayor Gibson is recusing herself from item 13 on the agenda, right-of-way acquisition, Track 12, Forest Hill Irene Road improvements. Mr. Gwaltney.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this agenda item is to request BMA approval of a contract and purchase with Mrs. Heidi Hosick and Mr. Michael Joyce in an amount not to exceed $133,000 for the purchase of real estate and easements related to improvements to Forest Hill Irene Road and disbursement of the purchase price to the seller and other incidental sums required of the city under the purchase agreement or otherwise effectuate the purposes of the purchase agreement. I won't go back through all the background on that. I'll just jump directly into it. The appraised value was $59,000 for this tract, which was the initial offer to the Joyces. The owners rejected that offer and countered at an amount of $178,891. Staff's second attempt at a settlement was at $83,000. The Joyces did not provide a counter to that second offer. At that point, it was turned over to the city attorney's office, and the city attorney's office was able to negotiate a settlement amount of $133,000, which staff supports, and we respectfully request approval.
Thank you, Mr. Gwaltney. Is there a motion to approve the acquisition of real estate and/or easements from Mrs. Heidi Hosick and Mr. Michael Joyce for the total lump sum amount of $133,000 for Tract 12 in accordance with the terms of the purchase agreement and authorize the disbursement of the purchase price to the seller and of other sums required of the city under the purchase agreement or otherwise effectuate the purposes of the purchase agreement?
Move to approve.
It's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any questions for staff? Yes, Alderman Owens.
Mr. Gwaltney, you mentioned in the executive session that there were some, I guess I'll call them extenuating factors. We discussed large diameter trees and as well as entrance features, gates, some ornate brickwork that was done. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
You mentioned the items that did affect Tract 12. The entry feature was a high dollar item. It was, again, a matter of opinion of what value that gate added to the property. We did have a contractor provide a quote to us to demo it and reconstruct it. The Joyces also had a contractor to provide a quote to do that same work. It was almost double what our contractor had. But again, it was all part of the negotiations.
That, again, that would be completely wiped out with this, with the project, the roadway project, and have to.
It has already been, it's already been demoed.
It's gone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Sure, Mayor.
Alderman Massey.
Mr. Gwaltney, I'm looking at it, you know, and originally the city offered $59,000 for this property. That was the appraisal. I think we had a third party do the appraisal. And now we're offering $178,000, which is 125% more than the appraisal.
No, sir.
So we're offering $133,000?
Yes.
Which is still 125% above
That's correct.
The original. So the city's appraiser appraised the property $59,000. We are now offering $133,000. That's 125% over what the city appraised the property for, or what our third party appraised the property for. So my question lies more with whether or not our appraisals are coming in too low for some of these properties, and how do you address that? And if you could just take a minute and explain how we've gone from 59,000 to 133,000. Really, we probably could have done that on the previous item.
Each tract along this property project that was anticipated to be above $10,000. And again, what went into that initial assumption was the amount of property to be acquired. What type of entry features were on particular tracks. Heavily landscape areas. All of those items went into the initial assumption of which tracks would be $10,000 or more. We had hired Eric Trotz to appraise all of those properties. The offers to those property owners were made based on those appraisals. As far as his background and expertise in appraisals goes without question. He is a local appraiser in this area that has done countless appraisals, not only for the city of Germantown, but for TDOT, for other governmental agencies, as well as private individuals. So about 75% of the property owners on this project accepted the offers, no questions asked. The few that we have gone back and forth with, 20% of those staff was able to come to an agreement. The ones we're presenting to you tonight and the ones that will be coming to you are the last remaining properties.
And if I can add, in terms of getting to the 133,000, that was, as Tim mentioned, a process of negotiations between the property owners in both of these cases and the city attorney's office. But the city attorney's office, Josh Lawhead with Birch Porter Johnson was our lead in helping to negotiate that. He did not do that in a vacuum. We had constant communications back and forth between myself and Mr. Gwaltney on what we thought was fair and equitable to try to appease the property owners and to have this property so we can move forward with the road without having to implement any type of eminent domain with our neighbors along the Roy. So coming up with this settlement agreement we thought was fair, given where the homeowners were initially and what we have to work with, and being able to have the project move forward without eminent domain.
Any other questions for staff? Alderman Yonda.
So I'll make sure we're still under budget on this at this point. Is that correct?
Approval tonight, we are still under budget. That is correct.
Thank you. After we get through with this, we'll still be under budget.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Mayor, how many more did Mr. Gwaltney say we have?
Two.
Two more to go.
Okay.
Yes.
What tracks are they?
Tracks 31 and 15.
They're identified in blue in your packet.
Yes, they are in blue. And I will say that the appraisals for both of those properties, $6,000 for track 15, $23,000 for track 31. So when we bring those to you, we will also bring those with a budget transfer request from construction to right-of-way.
But Tim, these are also the two where we have right of entry.
That is correct.
So it's not holding up the project in terms of the critical piece that needs to be done in front of the school.
Right.
Is 31 where the residence is already for sale?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So is that a valid reason why they're holding this thing up, trying to sell a house first?
It did not go on the market until after all the negotiations with the property owner took place or were taking place. Then the project went up for sale.
Any other questions for staff? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza,
Yes.
Motion carries and is
Thank you.
approved. Thank you, Mr. Gwaltney. Brings us to item 14 on the agenda, TDOT Contract Amendment Number 2, Wolf River Boulevard, Germantown Road Intersection Improvements Project. And you still have the floor, Mr. Gwaltney.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this agenda item is to consider approval of Amendment Number 2 in the amount of $5,497,607 to the existing Tennessee Department of Transportation Local Programs Contract for the Germantown Road, Wolf River Boulevard Intersection Improvement Project, increasing the contract amount to $7,356,007, which is 100% reimbursable. Amendment 2 is attached to your agenda packet as as attachment number 1. Amendment 2 makes 2 changes to our existing contract. First, the contract expiration date is extended to December 31st, 2022. The original contract for this project was executed in 2013 and had an expiration date of December 31st, 2018. Typically, a 5-year time frame, which is what our original contract was for, is sufficient to complete a local programs project. However, the scale and magnitude of this project and the complexity of it has taken us the full 5 years to navigate the environmental, preliminary design, right-of-way acquisition, and the final design phases. We're now nearing the construction phase, which necessitates the time extension. Secondly, Amendment 2 increases the reimbursable contract amount by $5,497,607 as indicated in Exhibit A, which is page 3 of Amendment 2. The biggest line item increases are the right-of-way costs and the construction costs. During the right-of-way phase, after the first few appraisals came in on the affected properties, we knew there was inadequate funds allocated for the right-of-way acquisition. We began discussions with TDOT and the Memphis MPO to make them aware of the shortage and requested additional funds. Both of those entities agreed to the additional funds and to continue covering the overages at the original contract percentages, which was 80% federal, that is the MPO, and 20% state, which is TDOT. To date, total right-of-way expenditures is roughly $3 million. That includes the acquisition costs as well as the professional services. Amendment 2 also includes the latest construction cost estimate for the project. The latest construction estimate was, the last construction estimate was made in 2016, which was prior to any property owner meetings. Property owner meetings began in the spring of 2017 during the right-of-way acquisition phase. And quite a few plans changes were made as a result of those property owner meetings. In an effort to accommodate a very common theme among the property owners, which was small retaining walls were added to minimize the amount of impact on the existing parking areas and landscaping areas along the project. The original plans did not include a mill and overlay of the entire width of the existing roadway. What it did include was quantities just to widen the roadway. Again, it did not include quantities to mill and overlay the entire project. Last but not least, the cost of almost every construction line item contained in the project has increased quite a bit since 2016. All that being said, the latest construction cost estimate is approximately $3.6 million, which is 3.5 times the original cost estimate in 2016. We approached TDOT and the MPO to discuss the updated cost estimates. They agreed that the updated cost estimates are in line with a project of this scale and magnitude and agreed to cover the construction phase at the original contract percentages of 80% federal and 20% state. Staff respectfully request approval of Amendment 2 in order to proceed with the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gwaltney. Appreciate your presentation. It's very thorough. Is there a motion to approve Amendment 2 to the existing TDOT local programs contract for the Germantown Road, Wolf River Boulevard intersection improvements project, extending the contract completion date to December 31st, 2022, and increasing the contract amount to $7,356,007, which is 100% reimbursable. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions for staff? Alderman Barzizza.
Mayor, I'm going to have a question. This doesn't involve this particular location, this particular issue, but and this is relative to the acquisition. But I met several weeks ago with some stakeholders in that area who are concerned about the ingress-egress into the complex of doctors' offices and in the commercial areas along Wolf River. And I know you've met with several of the stakeholders. Can you give me a little bit of an idea as to what has taken place and what provisions you are making in order to make this whole thing more palatable to the stakeholders?
Well, first, again, this is a major intersection with tremendous amount of traffic. Keeping traffic flowing during construction is going to be a challenge. What we're not going to do is open up all four corners of the intersection at one time. It's going to be done in quadrants. The order of those quadrants has not been determined yet, but I'll just say it's going to be impactful in a negative way during construction.
I'm sorry, if I could add, Alderman Barzizza, the mayor and I believe, Tim, you at that meeting, Chief Selberg, someone from the fire department was there, and their concern was, because it is a medical corridor, the number of patients they have and the reliance that the doctors have on particular emergency medical and be able to respond there in a timely manner. And the way the construction schedule is that Tim outlined, we discussed that. They were not aware of that. That made them feel a little bit better, but we'll also work very closer with Chief Selberg and EMS in our pre-construction conference to make sure that adequate, or more than adequate, access is going to be made available for our first responders to any of those buildings.
Well, not just the first responders, but a lot of the patients are on up in age, and they're still driving. But they would have somewhat of a problem getting in and out, and signage, whatever is necessary to alleviate any problems, particularly on the ingress-egress issue. I think it's very important that we address that from the get-go with the stakeholders and try to help them actually help their patients negotiate the traffic situation.
Understood, and I appreciate that. Matter of fact, we had quite a bit of that same type experience when we were doing the mill and overlay of Wolf River Boulevard between Germantown Road and Kimbrough. So not only signage along the roads, but as different access points become non-usable, yes, that type advanced warning must be done, and we'll do our due diligence to make sure.
Well, and we worked tonight as well on this last project so that it would not impact patients or our residents. We stand firm I was part of that meeting, we stand firm to make sure we make it as easy as possible, even though it's construction. So, yep. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens.
100% reimbursable.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Alderman Yonda.
Heck yes.
Alderman Barzizza.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Alderman Massey.
No.
Thank you.
Motion carries. That takes us to the items that were requested to be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the traditional agenda. Item 15, wireless transmission facility modification, equipment upgrade, AT&T, located at 8151 Poplar Avenue, OLPH Church. Mr. Fisher.
Mr. Mayor, let me start, and then I'm going to have Tony address our IT director any specific questions the board may have.
Sure.
But these last three items have a number of things in common. Number one, that the provider is AT&T, and the tower owner is Crown Castle, and that's either located on private property like the OLPH or city property, or the last one is also private property as well. What they're requesting in all three of these, begin with 15, I think is the first one at OLPH, is specific approval from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for equipment upgrade to replace 3 antennas and associated equipment at this existing wireless facility located on the church's property, or OLPH. And again, the tower owner is Crown Castle, and one of the tenants on that is AT&T Wireless, and they will be replacing existing antenna equipment with new equipment. Part of the city's ordinance regarding cell towers and modifications is that they need approval from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in order to move forward with their building permit to change the configuration, take out the old antennas and put new antennas on the tower. So that's essentially what's before the board this evening, is that approval. I understand I remember during the executive session there may have been some questions about coverage and those type of things, but perhaps Tony can address those if the board has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve the request allowing 3 replacement antennas and associated equipment on an existing tower for AT&T Wireless on the existing wireless transmission facility located at Our Lady of Perpetual Help, OLPH Catholic Church at 8151 Poplar Avenue?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's motion by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Alderman Barzizza. Questions for staff? Vice Mayor? Did you raise your hand or were you scratching? Okay. It's Alderman Massey, did you have a question?
Mr. Fisher, maybe you could just go into the details about what we're accomplishing by changing these out today, and give some explanation of how it's going to change service, if it's going to change service, what we do and don't know, and why we're having to take this vote tonight.
So what AT&T is doing, and we've done this, and this board has approved a number of other upgrades with AT&T that are the exact same thing that they're doing here, is really a nationwide upgrade of their towers, where they're adding additional frequencies, additional bands to those, additional spectrum that they've got over the years that now they're going back and adding in these towers. They're also adding the FirstNet equipment, so that'll help our public safety, our first responders that are using FirstNet, which is a public safety cellular system. As for coverage improvements, I can't definitively tell you what the improvements will be. However, one has to assume with new equipment and with these additional frequencies that they're adding that it will affect the coverage, hopefully in a positive way for our citizens.
And in regards to Alderman Massey, why the board is asked to take action this evening is it's included in the discussion portion of the agenda sheet, and I'll read that. It says the zoning ordinance allows for approval of wireless transmission facility co-locations and the replacement or addition of new equipment by service providers on an existing tower via a streamlined approval process, which involves the community development staff, making sure that meets all the technical requirements of the existing ordinance, and then approval by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, which is what's before you this evening, in order for AT&T to receive a building permit for the installation.
So, Mr. Lawton, who are the other people in the city that approved this prior to the board? You mentioned that there are other committees. It'd be
the community development staff. Reviewed this and worked very closely. That would be Ms. Pounder is here this evening, Mr. Ross, and whoever else in their department.
Mr. Fisher, who else is, other than those two individuals, who else is part of that process?
It goes through, as Mr. Lawton said, the community development process for those approvals.
So we named Sheila Pounders and we named Cameron Ross. So who are the other individuals that are involved in the approval process?
Ms. Pounder is here. Sheila, would you like to address the internal review committee?
And Ms. Pounders, I didn't intend to ask that tonight. Mr. Lawton just triggered that question, so I'm just curious.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Lawton. The planning staff, which consists of myself and also Sarah Gorleski, review all of the matter modifications for wireless transmission facilities. Once we review those applications, if they are city property with lease involved, we do send that information to the Information Technology Department to confirm that the leases are up to date. Once we determine everything is consistent with the previous approval, we then prepare the application to bring before this body for approval.
And what role do you play in the towers that are not on city property?
The process is the same for both the city property and private property. The difference is that the lease on private property is between private individuals and the cell tower owner. And we only look at the lease to see what is allowed as far as maintenance and upgrade is concerned.
And so when you're making your reviews, you're just looking at the terms of the lease. You don't determine whether the new technology is safe or whether it's going to provide any type of improvement to service. That wouldn't be something that you would do.
No, sir, that is outside the scope of our review.
Okay. And Mr. Fisher, I saw in one case it said that it's Castle, and then in one of the sheets it said that it's Tower Ventures, but I'm assuming that all three are Castle, also known as Tower Ventures. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Barziza.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Alderman Massey.
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Motion carries. Takes us to item 16 on the agenda, wireless transmission facility modification, equipment upgrade, AT&T, 3160 Forest Hill Irene Road, Millennium Furniture Company.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. Same situation as we had in item 15, where it's the same existing tower owned by Crown Castle at this location, and AT&T is the current service provider, and they are requesting an upgrade to their antennas that are located on this tower at 3160 Forest Hill Irene Road. Ms. Pounder very clearly went through the approval process by city staff, and per ordinance, it's now coming before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for your approval, so AT&T can move forward with obtaining the building permit to change out the old antennas and put new and improved antennas in place.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve the request allowing 6 replacement antennas and associated equipment for AT&T Wireless on the existing wireless transmission facility operated by Crown Castle located at 3160 Forest Hill Irene?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions for staff?
Just briefly, Mayor. So, Mr. Fisher, we'll get the same question on this. Mr. Lawton said that this is an improvement to the technology. I have no doubt that it probably is, but could you just explain what the improvement to the technology is so the public can hear it?
It's the same as the last one. They're adding additional frequencies on it. They need new antennas to serve those frequencies, as well as adding the capability to have FirstNet on these towers, which is the public safety network.
So the additional frequency is going to help the average homeowner beyond the public safety element that we have here? Or do you want to explain that maybe?
Yeah, again, well, I can't, definitively say that it will or won't in certain areas. Adding additional frequencies, there's a good likelihood that some people will see an incremental improvement in their coverage.
Do you know why they're requesting this? Can you explain that to the public at home, what we're accomplishing?
Sure. So they're requesting this for 2 reasons. One, because they have acquired additional spectrum, additional radio spectrum, and so they need additional antennas to be able to provide service on those. In addition, AT&T has the contract to run FirstNet, which is the public safety network. And in order to run that, they have to put additional equipment for those frequencies as well up there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fisher, just briefly describe, what is FirstNet again?
So FirstNet is a public safety network, so it gives our first responders access to data, so the police department can get their calls and get information, check warrants and things. The fire department can send EKGs to hospitals, but it gives them priority on that cell phone network. So in the event of a disaster, they would get priority above the general public to be able to get that information through.
This isn't just local, it's national, correct?
It is national, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions for staff? Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda.
Yes.
Motion carries. It brings us to item 17 on the agenda, wireless transmission facility modification, equipment upgrade, AT&T, 8594 Farmington Boulevard, Cameron Brown Park. Mr. Lawton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. Very similar to the other two presentations. We have the same players in place, Crown Castle and their existing cell tower located on property leased from the city of Germantown at Cameron Brown Park. And the other player is AT&T, who is desirous of changing out 3 existing antennas with 3 new antennas to provide better coverage in this area for all of the various reasons that Mr. Fisher described, from FirstNet to better and enhanced services. We anticipate that, or else why would they be changing out the towers? The approval process is also the same as described by our chief planner, Sheila Pounder, in terms of the review by planning staff and also concurrence with the IT staff as well. And staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. Lawton. Is there a motion to approve the request allowing an equipment upgrade by the replacement of 3 existing antennas with new antennas and their associated equipment for AT&T on an existing wireless transmission facility located in Cameron Brown Park at 8594 Farmington Boulevard?
Move to approve.
It's a motion by Alderman Barzizza, seconded by Alderman Yonda. Questions for staff? Yes, Vice Mayor?
Just a comment. I know in executive session I did make mention of the fact, while none of these towers are being asked to be heightened or any of those type of things, but this is, I believe, the 16th modification that's come before us within the last several months.
Correct.
After a 2.5-year process of where 2.5 years ago we did go ahead and change regulations to make certain that the tower companies could go up higher, as well as eliminate that fall zone, because they would fall in on themselves. Is that right?
That's correct, and I might add as well too that we did add an objective or a strategic objective in the Forward 2030 plan to look at improving infrastructure and this technology infrastructure in the city as part of this as well.
I look forward to more of these coming. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Alderman Massey? Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens,
Yes.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza.
Yes.
Item 17 is approved. I would, before the opportunity to adjourn the meeting, I would like to ask that staff, if you could take this back, Sheila and Patrick and appropriate staff. Oftentimes when we have these companies in town making modifications, let's go ahead and check our fencing around the structure and check our landscaping around the structure. Let's make that as a mental note to check those things, because as they're in front of us, that's the time to make sure that that landscaping's still robust from when it was planted years ago, and to check on fencing and other appropriate security around it, okay? Thank you, staff. We're at the conclusion of our meeting. We are adjourned.